everybody, welcome to another True Review. Today I'm bringing you Knee Deep on the Xbox One. It releases on the 3rd of February, priced at $11.99 in the UK. No other regions pricing as of yet, unfortunately. And what we have is a quite uniquely presented adventure game, much in the style, I'd say, of the Telltale games, where you choose dialogue to progress the story. Now, you don't have direct control over your characters, and the developers have taken the unusual choice of setting the game on a stage. You're like watching a play unfold, and the voice acting reflects that, and the sound effects, because it gets that echoey auditorium kind of feel to it. The characters move around by their own accord, and when they interact with other NPCs, you choose the dialogue options to progress the story and build up relationships and carry out the investigation into a suicide which has occurred. One of the a local actor, washed up actor, has thrown himself off the water tower. So what unfolds is an adventure through 3 acts, which I believe were released episodically on the PC, but now we have them all in one go on the Xbox One, going into an investigation of this apparent suicide. Now, you do play as 3 characters who are mainly all kind of reporter kind of characters. You play as Romana Teague, who's like a modern hipster kind of reporter who reports on a blog. You have Jack Bellet, I think he's called. He's a washed-up newspaper, old print, print and press reporter. And you play as Casey Gaddis, I believe he's called, who's is a former cop who's turned private investigator, but when we join him, he's not in a good place. He's about to put a bullet in his head. He's that low. And what progresses is you play as each of the characters at various points of the story, when it's switching automatically, building up more and more of a picture of what's actually happened, and filing reports for either your blog, your newspaper, or from the person who hired you to investigate it. With these, you find clues, and you choose a clue to focus on, and then you can either play it cautious in your report, you can be inflammatory, or you can be somewhere in between. This doesn't really have much of an impact on things other than obtaining achievements, to be honest here. It didn't seem to change things, which is something I will get into in a moment. Other than the dialogue choices, there are a few puzzles thrown in there, but they are so simplistic, and the hand-holding on these puzzles is so extreme, they're not even warranted to be called puzzles, really. For example, a lot of them involve reassembling things, like reassembling fingerprints or reassembling QR codes. The problem I have with these is you move the pieces in position and it will highlight that you've got it in the correct place, and you simply just have to hit the triggers to orientate it in the correct fashion, which basically takes the entire skill out of the puzzle, and they may have just automatically completed it anyway for you. Which leads on to the main problem with the game, is there's not an awful lot of gameplay here. Because all the movement is automated and you have no direct control over your characters, the investigation aspects of it just simply goes through different lines of dialogue. And having played through the game 3 times now in its entirety, making radically different choices each time, I would expect some major significant changes to the ultimate outcome of the story. And to be honest, there's not that happening there. So it seems that you have very, very little impact on what happens. It's just a case of you may get a few different lines of dialogue here, and a few conversations may go in a different way, but nothing that drastically alters the ultimate outcome of a story that the developers want to tell here. Which some people might say that's a good thing or a bad thing, but to me, if the gameplay is centered around making these decisions, and these decisions need to have some more of a noticeable impact on it. Turning to the story is a little bit confusing. It's one of these where you have to play the game more and more, and each playthrough you will generally understand what's going on. There's a lot of characters involved and a lot of subplots going on, such as corrupt officials. There's even a wacky cult to go on there. There's some relationship issues between various people in the in the small town. Typical kind of stereotypical things we see in a lot of American TV shows. It compares itself to Twin Peaks, but it's not quite there at that level, unfortunately. Graphically, you're looking at adequate but very basic kind of graphics. They do a job. I'd say they harken probably back to like the PS2 kind of era. There's nothing wrong with them. They're a bit dark and dingy, but they're all well formed, characters clearly well defined, and graphics are a high priority on my list, to be honest with you. They do obviously help things, but this occasion they do a reasonable job. The sound is where I personally like the game, because they've decided to set it on a stage, I think they've nailed it perfectly. The actual echoiness of it being played out in an auditorium, and like the oohs and ahs of the crowd, how they react to certain things as well. I think that actually works. It gives it that unique feel to it, and I think there's a bigger and better game to be made from this idea, because it does definitely work. Turning to achievements, it's pretty much a gimme 1,000 points. Most of it is automatic achievements. There's a few for completing these intelligence tests, which are a little bit random, but a few playthroughs you will get them, pretty straightforward. And as I mentioned earlier, you have to file reports as characters, and there's simply an achievement for constantly filing the same kind of report for the first act, at least anyway. So it's a very, very easy 1,000 gamer score. Now I'm going to give Knee Deep's a bit of a tricky one, really, because it depends how invested you get in the story. Like I say, gameplay wise, there's not an awful lot going on there. I was hesitant in giving. I was going to give this a 2, simply because there's not an awful lot of gameplay going there. But the more and more I played it, the more and more I actually enjoyed the story, as I got to understand a lot of things that were going on there. So I've edged this up to a slight 3. It's good, but it's one of these where you have to repeatedly play it and be invested in the story. If you're not going to be willing to put that time in and willing to be invested into the story and listening to what's actually going on, then it's probably going to be more of a 2. But for me personally, it's going to get a 3. So I hope you enjoyed that review, guys. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next review.